There is no stopping it. The cloud is Armageddon, steamrolling the world at a walking pace. If you are into sci-fi and if that sounds intriguing to you, come back after the intro. What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and today I'm back with another book review for you guys. If you happen to be new to the channel, I read a lot of indie and small press horror, a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. Check out some of the other content on the channel, and maybe you'll discover a book that you'll enjoy. But for today's book review, we're going to be talking about Monstre by Duncan Swan, or I guess in French it's Monstre. That was a horrible French accent. But I did receive this from the publicist for review consideration, and we did have a buddy read over on my Discord. The link to the Discord's down in the description if you'd like to join in the conversation over there. But the other booktubers that read along with me was Leslie from the Nerdy Narrative and Jay from J Maddox Entertainment. And my buddy Justin joined in. He doesn't have a booktube, but he does write reviews on Goodreads as well. And we had a good time with it. There was some differencing of opinions. Some of us really liked it, some of us not so much, and that's okay. It's always good to have healthy discussions about what you do like and what you don't like when it comes to books, and it was a lot of fun to read it with those guys and have those discussions. So remember back in '96, I believe it was, when Independence Day came out with Will Smith, you went to go see that movie and you thought, man, that was awesome. That was a blockbuster of a movie. That's how I felt about this book. It was epic. If I could pick one word only to describe Monstre, it would be epic. It was action-packed, it was riveting. It's this globe-spanning monstrosity of a story. Get it? Sort of there, monstrosity? No, okay. But did I also mention this is a debut? Yeah, it's a debut. Seriously, this is a debut novel. I totally would have never, ever guessed that this was a debut novel. You know, it's definitely well polished, and the prose and pacing feels seasoned like your grandmother's old cast iron skillet. Sorry if that's cheesy, but that's just what came to mind when I wrote that down. So I've seen this book making its rounds in the horror community recently, and I do want to say it's not a straight up horror novel. I don't want to be one to say what is and isn't horror, but first and foremost, it's definitely a sci-fi novel. Mix that with some dystopian, some post-apocalyptic, throw in some bits of horror here and there, and that's sort of the ride you can expect when you gear up to read this novel. For me, it had bits of Chernobyl with Starship Troopers, with The Walking Dead. There's no zombies here, though. With Call of Duty, if all those different franchises, if you will, or events got together and had some type of heathen child, it would be this book. That sounds like it would be a bit of a mess, but trust me, it works, and it works really, really well. By about page 20 or so, I was hooked. Monstre sunk its claws into me and snagged me, and I was definitely along for the ride. And I had a hard time putting the book down after those initial first 20 pages or so. It really gripped me and held my interest all the way through until the end. So what is Monstre actually about? This will be no spoilers. This is all just stuff, off the synopsis on the back here. But this is told from multiple characters' perspectives. We do have quite a hefty cast here, but it's told over these alternating different timelines, which I really enjoyed. To make it simple, I'm going to call it the European timeline and the American timeline. So it starts out at day zero, the American timeline. We're at the facility, the CERN facility over in Switzerland. And shout out to Dan Brown. CERN made an appearance in the Angels and Demons novel. Whenever I can slip a Dan Brown reference in there, I'm always going to do it. But we're at CERN, and something goes horribly, horribly wrong. There's just massive explosion that spews ash and smoke up into the air, and somehow it mixes and coalesces into this dark, impenetrable cloud that starts to sort of stretch out and cover the entire globe, blocking out the sun and bringing with it this cold weather and these monsters that are lurking within that cloud. So that's where we start off, day zero over in Europe at the CERN facility. And the days after that, like day one, day two, we're following the survivors of that initial explosion and the areas surrounding CERN. And we're also following a group of Marines that were over there as they try to go beneath the cloud and uncover what happened, what's going on, try to find any survivors or answers, and they end up encountering the monsters within the cloud. So we're skipping ahead in time about 3 months ahead to day 89. This is the American timeline. By this time, the cloud has spread over Europe, has reached the East Coast, and America itself is basically just in complete chaos. Everyone is sort of fleeing for their lives, trying to outrun this inevitable cloud that's approaching. They're fleeing to the West Coast. There's no power, there's no water. The government's basically completely shut down. Everyone's having to fend for themselves, and basically only the strong are going to survive here. This is sort of felt like the Walking Dead, post-apocalyptic part of the book. But the cloud's not quite there yet. They just know it's coming, so there's no monsters yet. They're just having to deal with the human monsters, and a lot of people showing their true nature in this post-apocalyptic world they find themselves in. Murder and death and robbery is just a basic, everyday, common occurrence now as people fight for resources and medicine and food and shelter, trying to survive as long as they can before eventually this unstoppable cloud comes and catches up with them. And I really like how the timelines play with each other. So you'll get, day 89, and then it'll skip ahead some to go back to day 2, and then alternate back and forth between those two different timelines. I really enjoyed that. It almost feels like a current timeline and a past timeline, but it never feels like we're flashing back to the other timeline. It always feels like we're present with whatever characters we're focusing on at the time, and I really enjoyed that. And the chapters, if you want to call them that, they're broken up by character. So whatever chapter you're in that character's head, their perspective for that chapter. So for example, it's sort of like A Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones books, if you read that. So there's, chapter named Clay, and then we'll have another chapter named Clay, find somebody else. There's chapter named Trace. So whatever the chapter heading is, that's whose head we're in for those pages until we get to, the next chapter. And I really enjoy that kind of storytelling, getting into a character's head and experiencing the story through their perspective. I really enjoy that. So in the European timeline, the day 0, day 1, and so on, we're dealing with a lot of intrigue and mystery surrounding the cloud itself, how it formed, where it came from, how can we stop it. Also about these monsters that are living within the cloud, it seems like. How can we kill and defeat them? But within that intrigue and mystery, there's a lot of perfectly paced, just gruesome action scenes, just full of blood and guts and gore. Swan, he definitely doesn't shy away from the carnage here while these Marines are fighting against these monsters within the cloud. It felt very Call of Duty type of action scenes here. It's full of bodies being just imploded, limbs being ripped off, all that kind of fun stuff. But on the flip side of that, in the American timeline, day 89, 91, so on, it's a bit slower, it's a bit more insidious, where we're dealing with these human monsters and these horrendous acts that they are perpetrating against each other. And overall, in both timelines, try not to get too attached to any one character. And this isn't really much of a spoiler for this kind of book, but there is a high body count here. So try not to get too attached to anybody. But as soon as these two different timelines are really ramping up, things are getting super interesting, and it feels like something big is about to happen. Sort of the seat is ripped out from under us, so to speak, and they both end on cliffhangers that just have us hanging at the edge of our seats, just wanting to know what is going to happen next. Now, there are a lot of military terms and sort of technical jargon that's used throughout the book, explaining the military sides, their gadgets, their weapons, their vehicles, all that kind of stuff. For some people, that might be a bit off-putting. For me, it didn't really bother me. Growing up and playing first-person shooters basically all my teenage years, I was sort of used to all that stuff, so that didn't really bother me whatsoever. Also, the characters themselves, while I thought they were good characters and I enjoy them, they're not super deep characters. We don't get a lot of depth to them. There's a few that do have interesting backstories, such as Trace and Coulter and Clay. that did bring forth and sort of explain their actions and their feelings as to their situations that they're currently in. And those were probably my 3 favorite characters. But if you're looking for super in-depth characters, you might be disappointed here. This is more, action-oriented, that kind of stuff. So hopefully in Volume 2, that now that we've met a lot of these characters, we can get a lot more in-depth with these characters, getting to know them a bit more, care for them a bit more, learn more about their backstories and whatnot. That is there some, like I said, with Trace, Coulter, and Clay, but not with everybody. I don't want to say they're cookie cutter, they're not cookie cutter, but they're not as in-depth of characters as other books you might be reading. This is more heavy action-oriented than character development here. Now, I don't often like to compare one author to another, but this just popped into my head while I was reading this. If you were to take Duncan Swan's name off the cover here and instead put the name of the late, great Michael Crichton on here, I totally would have believed that this was a Michael Crichton novel. It had that cinematic movie, blockbuster type feel that his novels do, but it also explained the way that the science and the technical aspects were written. They felt smart, but also easily accessible and not just over your head at the same time. And that really gave me those heavy Michael Crichton vibes. If you've read any Michael Crichton's books, and you like those, I think you'll enjoy this one as well. A big budget blockbuster of a book. Pulse-pounding action, a frenetic pace, and laced with dread. Monstre by Duncan Swan is the militaristic sci-fi novel that you've been looking for. I'm eagerly anticipating Volume 2 sometime in the summer next year. I can't wait to learn more about this mystery and find out what has happened to our characters after the cliffhangers here. If you are into sci-fi, definitely check this out. If you like post-apocalyptic, dystopian type stories, definitely check it out. If you are into horror and are maybe looking to branch out to something out of your comfort zone, maybe give this a shot. It is free on Kindle Unlimited. The paperback, it is $20. That does seem a little bit expensive. And I will say my friend Jay Maddox, he bought it from Amazon and it did not have the black painted edges. I don't know if that's just the way all the Amazon books are or whatnot. So just so you're aware of that, Amazon doesn't seem to have the black sprayed edges. But if you are into horror and are looking to branch out, this might be a decent place to check it out. Check out the free chapter or whatever that's probably on Amazon. See if it's for you. It does have a lot of blood and gore and guts that might be interesting to some horror readers. But overall, I really had a lot of fun with it. This was super entertaining, sort of big budget brain candy type of book. I'm giving Monstre by Duncan Swan 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said, I can't wait to read Volume 2 and see what happened to our characters and see what ends up happening to them as the story goes ahead and continues on. But that's all I have for you guys today. Again, this has been my 4-star review of Monstre by Duncan Swan. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.